What's up, YouTube? This is your girl, Megan. Welcome back to the Hood Astro Queen, to all of my returning subscribers. However, if this is your first time joining me on today, be sure to hit that subscribe button because you know you want to. And today, I wanted to talk about what most of the internet has been talking about for about 2 weeks now. I've been gone for a minute. Now I'm back with the jump off. Y'all know how it goes. I promise one of my New Year's resolutions for 2020 is to be a bit more consistent as it pertains to this channel. Just because, I do allow a lot of the things that are taking place in my life to affect my ability to produce content. And that sucks because I fucks with y'all the strong way. And, we don't want to get into a habit of that. So, with that being said, today I am going to do a birth chart reading for Vanessa Lane Bryant. She is the widow of Kobe Bryant. Back on January 26th, Kobe Bryant, in addition to his daughter Gigi and 7 other people, were killed in a helicopter crash. And there's really nothing to say except for it was a very sad incident. It was very jarring, very shocking, very surprising, very becoming of Aquarius season, So with that in mind, I wanted to take a look at Vanessa's birth chart because she had some very interesting placements that I feel are worth a discussion. So y'all want to hear it? Here it go. Miss Vanessa Lane Bryant was born on May 5th, 1982 in Los Angeles, California, making her a Taurus sun, Libra moon. And one of the first factors or key factors that kind of popped out at me as it pertains to her chart was the fact that her sun, which is at the 14th degree of Taurus, is conjoined to her Chiron, which is at the 22nd degree of Taurus. And quite frankly, this aspect can produce a person who has very artificial relationships with men and dysfunctional relationships with men that stem from the father. Although the same can be said for the relationship with children, as the sun does represent children as well. So this aspect, I see more often than not, can result in a woman who has children for checks. Okay, a gold digger. Now, let me preface this before I go any further, because I know this can be kind of triggering, giving, everything that just happened. And I'm not insinuating that she doesn't love or she didn't care about Gigi or she's not mourning over her child. Or look, take all of that, throw it away. I'm not insinuating any of that. I'm just stating the manifestations of this aspect, these placements, as I see them. And honestly, before today, because I did do some research on her before I did the reading, basic biography, life events, just basic shit. And to be honest, there is not that much to be found about Vanessa Bryant on the internet, by the way. But I don't know this lady. I don't really know much of her even still. And therefore, I have no reason to, formulate a narrative one way or the other as it pertains to her. However, I do feel like she's a gold digger, especially based off of this aspect. It's one of the smoking guns in her chart as it pertains to that part of her personality, okay? This aspect could absolutely create a person or a woman who has relationships with men solely for security purposes. Now, this could be financial security, but this could also be emotional security and so on and so forth. This could point towards a person who is accustomed to attaching themselves to wealthy men or men of means. I've also seen this produce a woman who has a father who could have been a provider, which does check out, as her father and stepfather were businessmen, according to Google. But this also is one of the key placements of a trophy wife, a woman who is almost even I'm not going to say objectified, but she fits that profile of being viewed as a possession. This could even point towards Kobe being very possessive of her. You know, she could have also been accustomed to having rather dysfunctional relationships with men. And this aspect can actually even deal with Kobe having kids outside of the marriage as well, as the son represents the husband. And, Chiron does deal with things that are illegitimate. And then with the son also dealing with children. And then a lot of time, Taurus sun women tend to attract men. Taurus Mars women kind of as well, but they can attract men who have lots of affairs while on the job, or men who are kind of like fertile and have this tendency to like produce children. Now, while we can say the same is true for them, like, because they have like 3 or 4 children together, I do feel like based off of this aspect, there is a possibility that Kobe could have fathered a child outside of the marriage. It is what it is, okay? And then also this aspect can just point towards her really being the type of person to despise change, which could have led to the decision of her staying married to him all of these years, despite the allegations, despite the infidelity, and so on and so forth. Now, I read that back in 2011, she did file for a divorce for irreconcilable differences, but later retracted it, and then she popped up pregnant again. So we all know how that happened. Now, her son is also forming a quincunx to her Saturn, with her Saturn at the 17th degree of Libra. And this right here points towards Kobe being rather controlling of her. And the same could also be said for her son conjoined to Chiron. I do get the feeling that Kobe was very, very controlling. Not to mention, Kobe himself is a Virgo sun, and I do believe his sun is conjoined to his Saturn. And I mean, let's just be honest, God rest the dead, but he had a reputation of being a not so easy person to deal with, just on a personality level. And I do feel like within that marriage, he was very critical of her and rather, like I said, controlling and kind of overbearing at times. Her sun is forming an opposition to her Jupiter in Scorpio, which right there actually can deal with the death of a husband, the death of children or a child. It could also point towards Vanessa herself having powerful near-death experiences as well. And even her not even really being able to express her sexuality fully. This could also point towards secrets. Secrets that she has, like that she knows where the bodies are buried, so to speak, or her knowing lots of things about Kobe that probably may never be revealed, or maybe even secrets about her that come out to light. This aspect could also point towards or produce a lot of debt as well. Now, she has other placements and other indicators of her being pretty financially well off and her being pretty much like taken care of. But, with this aspect, accumulating lots of debt is a possibility. That's not beyond the realm of plausibility. Issues with taxes and the IRS, all that shit. So I hope she has a really, really good accountant, and I hope they stay on top of that. Now, her Venus, which is at the, it's at the 0 degree of Aries, actually, and her Mars, which is at the 0 degree of Libra. Well, first off, they're opposing one another, which can deal with her dating an athlete, but it can also reinforce her being a bit of a doormat within the relationship, or her taking a more passive role within that relationship between she and Kobe. It could also create an effect, especially individuals with their Mars and Libra, where they are very dependent upon others. So they have a very difficult time being like fully self-sufficient. her relying on relationships to bring her what she needs. But also with her Venus and Aries, that actually deals with her dating athletes as well. Now, something interesting is that her Venus and her Mars are squaring her Neptune, which is at the 26th degree of Sagittarius. And that quite literally can point towards there being lots of infidelity within her relationship, which I don't think would come as a surprise to many. I mean, they made headlines about it. So there's that. And you could even look at that, opposition between that Venus in Aries and her Mars in Libra as there being like that court case between Kobe and the young lady who accused him of rape, where there's like a legal standoff, where, there has to be like some type of legal battle that ensues on the behalf of her husband, or some type of like affair that he finds himself in, that Venus in opposition to Mars, fighting, or even where she's fighting for her husband, or where even there's a lot of inner tension within the relationship at times, where the relationship can be fueled with a lot of like, they can be clashing a lot. Not to say that they weren't compatible or that they didn't love one another, but that Venus opposition Mars can be, and from a relationship standpoint, it can be kind of tough. It could definitely create relationships that are filled with lots of conflict. And more often, especially with her Mars in Libra, she would have been the one, especially with her being a Libra moon as well, she probably would have been the one doing a lot of the accommodating. You know what I'm saying? The one making the trade-offs in order to make the relationship flow. Now, that opposition between that Venus and Mars could also even deal with her going through court battles in terms of the relationship, which, if I'm not mistaken, back when she did file for divorce originally, she, there was rumors about her getting money, and everybody was talking about how much money she would have gotten. And had she actually gone through with that divorce, I mean, it could have gotten ugly. This aspect, her Venus opposing her Mars, could absolutely point towards her being predisposed towards like court battles, or like marital, court battles and whatnot. Even court battles, I wouldn't even be surprised, especially with her being a Taurus sun, court battles that involve children, custody disputes and so on and so forth. Her Mars at the 0 degree of Libra also points towards, or kind of does reinforce, Kobe being a womanizer, a bit of a ladies' man. And it could even deal with her collecting intel on him. Maybe she hired a private investigator or ambushed him at a certain point within the marriage, especially with that Venus in opposition to Mars. Now, her Mars is also trining Chiron, which once again supports her getting a lot of money in court, and just kind of further supports her being blessed with wealth from her husband. And I do get the vibe, especially off of this aspect, that Kobe was definitely the type to wine and dine her, or she was accustomed to that from men. Also, not for nothing, I read that she was initially a model, and that Mars in Libra is one of the more quintessential placements for a person who's a model, who makes money off of their beauty. Now, in opposition to that Venus, Kobe probably wasn't having that. That Venus in Aries can produce a partner or a mate who is very, I'm going to say, selfish, but also very like headstrong about the things that they want, especially for their partner. And remember the accommodation factor, right? I feel like she is a very accommodating, or she was the more passive partner in the relationship. However, I must say that with her Mars sextiling her Uranus, which is at the 3rd degree of Sagittarius, I do feel like even still She and Kobe had a very spiritual connection with one another. I do feel like she viewed him as a almost like a best friend. They had a very friendly based relationship, like friend first type of thing going on. Because that is a very favorable aspect for a woman to have in her chart. It also further reinforces her really being in a position to be blessed by him, him really helping her out financially, but also, like I said, even on like from a spiritual perspective. This placement could also create an effect to where she idealizes him or where she holds him at a high regard. And one of the most interesting parts about Vanessa's chart is that she's a Capricorn South node, and her nodes are at the 16th degree. And in numerology, that number 16 deals with catastrophe, especially with her North Node in Cancer at the 16th degree. That can absolutely yield in some catastrophic family events or things that happen that literally change the course of your household forever. Now, with her being a Capricorn South Node, this further supports her being the quintessential gold digger in a lot of ways. As for a lot of Capricorn South Node women, being a mother doesn't come naturally. These women aren't domesticated, and some can actually be very superficial and very materialistic, like hyper materialistic, to the point where everything is about status and about power and about what you have. And with her asteroid Juno conjoined to her Capricorn South Node, this definitely can deal with her dating men who have access to these things: power, wealth, money, resources. But it can also just point towards her dating older men as well, which does check out because Kobe Bryant is like 4 years her senior. And there was a lot of scandal around the fact back in the day that he engaged her the second she turned 18 and started dating her at 17, although he was clearly in his 20s. Also, with her being a Cancer North Node, this could even deal with childbirth, pregnancy, and even child rearing being difficult for her, which also it checks out because I read that she actually had a miscarriage due to an ectopic pregnancy back in like 2005 or something like that. So that is definitely attributed to that Cancer North Node at the 16th degree. There's going to be a lot of karmic debt for her surrounding, like I said, status, wealth, and power, but also family and womanhood. Her being a Capricorn South Node could also reinforce her having lots of karmic debt that started with the father. And this is also reinforced as far as her having karmic debt with men, is reinforced with her Saturn at that 17th degree of Libra. It could also make her a punisher as well. So, for example, although she didn't leave Kobe for his transgressions, she could have been the type to make him pay behind the scenes, like giving him the silent treatment. That's very Capricorn South Node. And with her Saturn in Libra, I'm pretty sure that's how she navigated her way through a lot of that relationship in a very passive manner, but don't confuse passivity with complacency or nothingness. Like, she seems very, I get very like passive aggressive tease from her. So the minute Kobe fucked up, like I said, she probably gave his ass the meanest silent treatment you've ever seen in your life. That Capricorn South Node could also reinforce her being a privileged princess or like being taken care of, especially as the number 16 breaks down to 7. And that can like further support her being like materialistic and liking for men to take care of her or liking to be taken care of, or supported or insulated in some type of way. Now, with her Capricorn South Node squaring her Saturn, this can quite literally point towards the death of a partner that she will never get over. And I do have a feeling that And I guess you can make the argument that like, oh, nobody would ever get over that. You just learn to live with it. But I do feel like based off of this aspect, she could have a very, very difficult time releasing, some of the angst and the grief from this situation. Her son is also sextiling her North Node, which is a really good aspect in the sense that it does reinforce Kobe being an excellent provider for his family. So if nothing else, from a financial standpoint, he was definitely able to secure his family and make sure that they were well off. And this could also point towards heightened fertility as well. But with that Cancer North Node, carrying the child, giving birth to the child, and even raising these children could be quite difficult. So I wouldn't actually be surprised if she had issues with her children, moving forward. I'm not saying that it was Gigi in particular, but she has like two other children. So I wouldn't be surprised if in the future, there were some really major issues that she would have with her kids there. Now, with her Libra moon squaring her Capricorn South Node, as I stated before, this does point towards her being like the doormat in the relationship, but it could also deal with her being very plugged into social media, with everybody kind of being, the sounding board for their opinions on these topics. I mean, from the Gayle interview to which I'm gonna just hold my thoughts on that because y'all finna cuss me out in the comments. But yeah, from the Gayle interview to everything else, I'm pretty sure her looking at that has to be very depressing, based off of this aspect, because she does give me that she's very aware of what's going on. She's one of those people, even before Kobe's death, to be very tuned in to social media, very much wanting to remain current and that type of thing. This aspect could also point towards her compromising in relationships, kind of like I stated earlier, but doing so to cling on to material things. So even staying married or making the decision to stay married based on money, which once again is no surprise. Also, I do feel like she learned a lot about herself from the relationship, and that is supported by that Libra moon, as well as, even that Saturn in Libra, and her Libra Mars. She has a lot of Libra energy. So I feel like, and a lot of people who do have Libra energy, that's typically how it works. You're only really able to adequately learn about yourself and who you are as a person through other people, which is like a catch-22, because it can be a good thing, but it can be a sucky thing. I also feel a lot of that relationship with that Libra moon squaring her Capricorn South Node could have been theatrics and like putting up an image. So, and that's very big with a lot of Capricorn South Nodes as well. Now, with her Libra moon squaring her Cancer North Node, this could deal with Kobe encouraging her to be a better woman and mother. This could even be her deciding to start a family to secure the bag, or maybe even her being so influenced by Kobe to where she's like, okay, I'm going to accommodate based off of, the things that I'm not so normally used to, right? I'm not a super like maternal type chick, but my man wants a kid. Let me give him some babies type things. This aspect could also point towards lawsuits and legal disputes from a housekeeper, or just involving the home rather. But it does correlate a story that I read about their housekeeper suing them at a certain point, which they settled out of court. Now, according to the housekeeper, I'm going to read this excerpt and y'all can just make the decision for yourself. Now, this article says the couple faced a lawsuit in 2009 from their former housekeeper, Maria Jimenez, who accused Vanessa of badgering, harassing, and humiliating her repeatedly. The Bryants filed a counterclaim stating that Jimenez had violated a confidentiality agreement when she decided to discuss their private affairs in public. It too was settled out of court. So yes. And this actually also further supports that Venus, her Venus in opposition to her Libra Mars, that like court battle thing going on where there's like a lot of legal disputes happening within this relationship in general. And it can, furthermore, her moon squaring her Cancer North Node can actually make her rather unpleasant to live with. So, with that being said, I actually would have to side with the maid because the bitch probably was off the chain. With that Libra moon, she probably was, putting her on trial and interrogating her and interfering, not letting the lady do her job the right way, especially when she felt like she was in a certain type of mood and being bitchy, I'm pretty sure. So, there's that. But then also that aspect can even point towards her having issues with women in general. So, there's that. Also, as I stated before, with her Juno conjoined to that Capricorn South Node, it just reinforces her being naturally the person, like when it comes to relationships, which I'm pretty sure this is what it was when they first met. Her being more attached to the idea of fame and material success over love. Not to say that that's not what it evolved into over time, especially if she activated that Cancer North Node, because that Cancer North Node does require a person to really tap into their emotions and soften themselves and really, like I said, embody that like Susie Homemaker, domesticated family woman type of energy. But initially, I'm pretty sure she just saw an opportunity. She could be very much accustomed to transactional style relationships. This could also deal with relationships that are very long and karmic in nature. There could have possibly been a past life connection between she and Kobe. This could also point towards her engaging in relationships that are limiting and restrictive in some way. And it does support her being in relationships that are controlling. And I also get the vibe that he took on a father role, like a father or a mentor role within their relationship as well. Now, from a transit perspective, I wanted to discuss some interesting things that I saw taking place. So, Vanessa is rapidly approaching what is known as her nodal return. And this is essentially when the transiting lunar nodes are on top of your natal lunar nodal placement, okay? And on the 26th of January, the transiting North Node was at the 6th degree of Cancer. Now, her North Node is at the 16th degree of Cancer. So it's not quite a conjunction. So she hasn't reached that point just yet, but she will later on in the year, especially given that nodal returns occur at the ages of 18, 37, 55, 74, and then, of course, after that as well. But, I mean, if you live longer than that. But, with Vanessa being born in 1982, she's 37. So she's literally overdue for a nodal return. And, nodal returns, not for nothing, can cause some very drastic and fated events that help evolve the traits that are associated with that North Node. So in her case, some very drastic and fated events involving her children, family, and home life. And this is also reinforced, remember, with her North Node at that 16th degree of catastrophe. So quite literally, this nodal return, the theme of this nodal return was definitely death, misfortune. And this was also reinforced with transiting Pluto conjoined to her South Node. So transiting Pluto forming an opposition to her North Node in Cancer. These events could have occurred in order to help her value family, or in order for her to be, as I stated before, a more softer person. With her being a Cancer North Node, she has a karmic duty to become more comfortable with her emotions and emotionally charged situations, as there tends to be a default type of programming to be kind of unavailable and closed off. And although if she doesn't fully embrace this North Node energy, it can go both ways. And as I stated before, she can become bitter, but it's all a matter of free will and how she chooses to utilize the energy from this incident. If she kind of sinks back into that Capricorn South Node mode of thinking, she could be, like I said, bitter, alone. But with her Libra Mars Moon, it's in Saturn, so essentially her Libra stellium, I do feel like it kind of is. She kind of has a difficult time being alone, but nonetheless, if she doesn't activate that North Node energy, that could be what results. Also, that Capricorn South Node, with her approaching that nodal return, your South Node, some of your South Node traits can be triggered as well. And I do feel like in this instance, they definitely were, because that Capricorn South Node can produce situations to where you have to do things by yourself. So you can even look at this as her like having an interrupt or a disruptance in her family and having to be a single mom. That's that Capricorn South Node. Like, I got to figure out how I'm going to do this by myself. I got to go through hardship and struggle. So it just depends on how you look at it. Also, I think that the theme of this nodal return was intended for her to operate on a more personal level and to be a lot more, like I said, domesticated with her family, but then also like just more emotionally connected to her children, probably a lot more emotionally connected than she was before. This incident could also help to hone some of her psychic abilities. Also, transiting Saturn and Jupiter are conjoined to her South Node, that Capricorn South Node as well, which can definitely trigger events like death of a spouse, especially with transiting Saturn and Pluto squaring her Pluto, and with her Pluto being in Libra. So literally, quite literally, dealing with the death of a spouse. Now, because these are your heavier planets, I feel like this transit was triggered by transiting Sun, which on the 26th of January was at the 6th degree of Aquarius, and it was squaring her Jupiter at the 4th degree of Scorpio. So that right there is what triggered that Pluto and Saturn transit, or her South Node transit. And that could actually produce deadly accidents during travel, especially with Aquarius dealing with like aircraft. That could also deal with the death of a child and husband. And also transiting Mercury was at the 17th degree of Aquarius, and it squared her Sun as well. And this aspect could even point towards her learning the shocking news, like about the accident, by way of TMZ, as Mercury does deal with media as well. And which is, I know a lot of people, were very upset with TMZ about that, because it came out that they ended up leaking the story about Kobe's death before the family were formally informed about it. Also, this could represent Kobe and Gigi traveling locally in the helicopter. Also, on the 26th, transiting Venus was at the 15th degree of Pisces, and it was trining her Cancer North Node, which, despite all of the tragedy of it all, can deal with or support the fact that, she was very well taken care of. Like, this situation left her very much like financially insulated, and also finally transiting Saturn was shining her Capricorn at that 22nd degree of Taurus, which does echo the rumors of Kobe leaving her some type of business opportunity, or maybe perhaps she was already involved in one of her own. But either way it goes, like I said, I do see that common theme of her being very well provided for in her chart. So this video is long enough. And if you made it to the end, I love you. So I'll drop down in the comment section. Let me know, what did y'all think of this incident? Like, what did you think when it first happened? Where were you? What were you doing? And what did you think about her chart? What do you think about Vanessa? What do you know about her? Y'all know something I don't know? Feel free to share all of that. And as always, make sure you practice unconditional self-love so that you can love others. And until the next video, I holla.